often a cruel one.
Every time you lose, you die a little bit. You die inside, a portion of you. Not all of your organs, maybe just your liver.
Pain is inevitable.
They're killing me, Whitey. They're killing me.
There was only the painful face of failure.
Okay, fellas? Hey, fellas, this is what you work all off season for. This is why you lift all them weights. This is why you do all that.
There was a fighting heart under the ribs of defeat.
Never give up, baby. Never give up.
Hey, because football season never ends. This is Intentional Grounding with your host, Pat Grothier, on Brookdale Student Radio, 90.5 The Night. Check it out.
Welcome back, everybody, to the new season of Intentional Grounding. We are back and better than ever, and I'm very excited to be back in the studio. So, a couple things, of course, as always, before we get into the show. A couple things couldn't fit in. It was rumored last night, but actually put into place this morning with James Harrison going back to the Steelers, putting out one more year, maybe some more. We'll see how he goes. He's only 13 sacks away from tying the record of Jason Gilden of the all-time Steelers sack record. He's got 64, and the record is 77. Coming a little late into the season, getting 13 sacks from now would be impressive at his age, but James Harrison, if you saw him on Hard Knocks, if you see anything outside of the season, what he does for preparation and how much he puts into keeping his body going into it, it's impressive to say the least. Another thing was Manti Te'o, I believe, is being put on IR. Or no, just fractured foot, going to miss a couple weeks. Jarvis Jones, the linebacker, is why they're getting Jason Harrison over at Pittsburgh, so excuse me for that. But we'll get into it 5 and out, as always. You know, for anybody new tuning into the show, we'll do the top 5 NFL headlines of the week. Not much going on besides all the hoopla of what you've been hearing for the past month of Ray Rice, of course, Adrian Peterson, and then Jonathan Dwyer, and Greg Hardy as well, with all the domestic violence, and Adrian Peterson with the child abuse issues. I know you're all sick of hearing it because I'm sick of hearing it, so we're only going to talk about it for a very little bit. Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, was speaking at a press conference yesterday to basically take the blame off of the Baltimore organization and put it onto the Rice camp, which was, basically expected. And just looking at the guy, I've never seen this owner before, so I can't really speak too much on him, as I could about a Woody Johnson or Jerry Jones, who's constantly in the spotlight, Dan Snyder, all of those guys. But from the look at it, he looks to be a pretty good BSer and a pretty good liar. He didn't look like he was telling too much of the truth up there. He went on to criticize a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines, Don Van Natta and staff, saying that most of it was fabricated and that all of the sources were friends of Ray Rice. So it was very, very confusing, what's all that's going on right now. But it's just trying to get to the bottom of it, is how deep does this really go? How much of a cover-up really is it at this point? Did the Ravens know about it? Did Roger Goodell know about it back in April? The incident happened in February with him and his then fiance, and why she married him a week later, now wife, is beyond me. But who knew about it? Does it go as deep as... Does Harbaugh know about it? Does at least Ozzie Newsome know about it? Or did it just be kept at Roger Goodell and the owner? You got to think that a lot of people do know about it, but beyond the point. We'll get up to next here. This when you look at it, you never want to see anybody hurt, of course, but it makes you laugh at how much of an idiot Stephen Tulloch was this weekend, Lions linebacker, and one of their top linebackers since they signed him. He came over from the Titans in 2011. In every single category that basically counts as a linebacker, how many snaps you played, how many tackles you've had, how many sacks, and how many times you kind of get back there and disrupt the quarterback, this guy's leading it every single year. So he goes up, sacks Aaron Rodgers. We all know from the stupid commercials, discount double check. He does the little championship belt thing. So he did a big old hop in the air, did the discount double check, landed down in straight Bill Grammatica style, and tore his ACL. So he's out for the year, and it's I wouldn't say shocking of Jim Caldwell's response to it, because if we remember him from the Indianapolis Colts, he was very, very zombie-ish. He just looked like a figurehead, like someone was pulling the strings in the back of him. Said, it's a loss there. Quote, unfortunately, in our game, it happens all too often. I mean, you'd love to see a little bit of fire out of the guy, maybe getting a little angry, but what you can't call much, from him. But I mean, I understand you want to celebrate. Big sack, cool. You're at home trying to win the game. You do his little celebration, but another injury, a whole lot this week, a whole lot going on in the first 3 weeks of the season. Now that I really think about it, a lot of big names too. It's not a couple of no-name guys getting hurt. This time was D'Angelo Hall, who was cornerback for the Washington Redskins. Ruptured his left Achilles tendon and is going to miss the rest of the season, but he's having a good outlook on the future. He's very optimistic after speaking with Los Angeles Lakers star Kobe Bryant, who just recently went a Achilles injury as well. Hall is 31 years old. Kobe is 36 years old, so they're not that far apart. And I would say that in football years, Hall is just about 36 years old too, playing for this long, 11 years, and this is really his first major injury now. A lot of people say, it's a bit like you look at Reggie Wayne. A lot of people were doubting. I was myself doubting if he was going to really be able to come back strong after being, that old and coming back with an ACL injury. It's tough to do. But from what he's saying is that, Achilles injuries aren't as bad as some people make them out to be. It's not really the end of the world. But like I said, he's turning 31 just in a couple of months. But he hasn't missed a whole lot of games. So we'll see. Hopefully, all the best to him, and I hope he comes back stronger than ever. Another big hit here. Former Jet. I love watching this guy play. No matter where he is, Danny Woodhead, explosive little guy. His size is just irrelevant. He doesn't care. Fractured his fibula, so he's out for this season. Really, really rough injury for them. Also having Ryan Matthews out for at least another month. I believe he had a knee injury as well. So now, hometown hero here, the other guy who came out of that draft, Donnie Brown, or now he likes to be called Donald Brown, from UConn and formerly RBC, I think it was RBC. If not, I'll have my dad text me in a second, correcting me. He's going to be the starter. So he's going to get right back on the map again. He was over there with the Colts and never really break into that starting running back barrier. Now hopefully he gets a chance to prove himself. And if when Matthews and Woodhead come back and they're better than ever, maybe he can get an opportunity somewhere else as a starter or at least a second string guy, not bringing up the tail end of the depth chart. And he's also going to be a little bit of a fantasy target. So, if you got a bye week and you really need somebody, I would recommend taking a look at Donnie Brown over there. Lastly here, in 5 and out, the Ravens. Dennis Pitta. This is really tough for him. He's out for the year. The same dislocated, and I believe might have been fractured hip this year. I think it was just dislocated last year. Same exact one on his right side. Took him out most of the year last season, so he's missing it again. A lot of people are questioning whether he is going to be able to come back after this. Career-wise, not even just, next season, but career-wise. Harbaugh said, quote, I don't know the ramifications of that long-term. I'm going to be really hopeful for Dennis's return, and I'm sure we'll learn about that in the coming weeks. Owen Daniels is going to start in his place, and they're going to be looking for another tight end as well. So we will take a look now at the week in review, what happened last week, a couple of the local games. Teams around the tri-state area. San Diego beat Buffalo 22-10. Philadelphia beat Washington 37-34. That was a great game. I was able to catch a little bit of the second quarter and most of the end of the third and fourth in that. I missed the fight, but I saw the replay. It was pretty crazy. It was a real dirty hit on Nick Foles, and I was shocked he was able to just get back up like that. Giants won 30-17, getting their first win. New England 16-9 in a close win over Oakland. I went to the bar and was with a Patriots fan, and he was shocked they even won that. And that's two close losses for Oakland against AFC East teams. I mean, they barely beat the Jets in week one. I mean, they barely lost to the Jets in week one. Pittsburgh beat Carolina on Sunday night, 37-19. And Chicago last night, of course, as you saw, beat the Jets 27-19. New thing we're going to do a week in review. We're going to give out game balls this week. I was trying to find somebody from both offense and defense, so I'm going to try to do that every week. But I was able to find offense. Rashad Jennings, brand new back for the Giants. He was spent all the years outside of there. 34 carries, 176 yards and a touchdown. He had just about like a 5.1 yard average. So hats off to him. And he did very, very well for himself. We're going to take our first break. Coming up after the break, we got most ridiculous story. I'm telling you, it's bigger than it's ever been. So you can't miss this one. We'll be back in about 4 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, here at Intentional Grounding. I am your host, Pat Grothier. We are back and better than ever. First week back in the new season. I would have loved to start before the season. I was not able to get in touch with or get a date, really, before the semester started, to get a solid date and time to get in here. Now that the new semester started here at Brookdale, they had the first student radio meeting, so we are back. And we are excited to be here. I keep saying we, like I got a studio full of people helping me. It's just me doing everything. I don't know why I always say we, but I'm going to keep saying it. Something I don't know how this slipped my mind at the beginning of at the broadcast. We had a death in the NFL this week. Former Titans kicker Rob Baronis in a single car crash, dead at the age of 36. There's some more reports coming out of it. That a woman had called 911. The call was obtained by several media outlets. That he was driving very erratically and basically trying to run her off the road. Of course, didn't know who he was at the time, but I'm guessing shortly after that, he had crashed and fatally died at the scene. So, rest in peace to him and all the best to his family. There was no evidence of drugs or alcohol at the scene. Autopsies are being performed and all that, but regardless of what happens, you never want to see that, especially so young, only at 36. But we'll get into it. Games to watch. Division game of the week. It's going to be a great one, and it always is whenever it's up. Unless a better one is there, I'm always saying it. Green Bay and Chicago, because both of these teams are always. It's basically the the NFC North in general. Seems like it's always fighting for that top spot. Green Bay coming in 1-2, and Chicago 2-1. Best game of the week. I'm shouting it out. 3-0 Philly against San Fran, 1-2. San Fran surprisingly 1-2 right now. But Philly, I think they're going to be a great team. And people were doubting me, BSing before the season with a couple fans. I was throwing out Philly out there to take away the NFC East and not even just to walk away with the NFC East after beating, pretty decent teams. They had Indy 30-27 and Washington 37-34. I think the Kirk Cousins-led Washington team is a lot better than the RG3-led ones. Blew out Jacksonville in Week 1, 34-17. But San Francisco having a little bit of a surprising season, only winning their home opener to Dallas. I'm sorry, the season opener to Dallas, 28-17, and then losing two straight. Chicago 28-20, and this past weekend Arizona 23-14. Arizona's another team you really got to look out for. 3-0 against good teams as well. San Diego and Giants, who are falling off a little bit, but they still got a decent defense and a good run game. It's mainly Eli who's giving them a lot of issues, and then they just beat San Fran. So look out for that team. Thursday night game is the Giants. We were just talking about against the Redskins. Both teams 1-2. Local area games. You got Jets facing off against Detroit at home. 2-1 Lions. Jets, of course, 1-2. And Buffalo versus Houston. And then Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh. And then Monday night game following the Sunday slate is New England versus Kansas City. And we got our first week of buys. And I know that's definitely hurting a lot of people in fantasy right now because there's a lot of big-name teams that are going out. Cincinnati, Cleveland, St. Louis, Denver, and then Arizona and Seattle. So there's a lot of high caliber fantasy guys on some of those teams. I know AJ Green's out for me as well as Julius Thompson. Yeah, if you remember from last year, I took off of fantasy and it felt great. It really did. But I'm back in it. Couldn't resist. You catch the bug again, and it really hooks you. But I'm doing all right. I'm 3-0. I can't really complain. I got a pretty decent team behind me. And just beat my dad, so that was pretty cool. But we'll get into the most ridiculous story because I know you've been waiting for it. I put it up on all the various social media outlets. We'll remind you of them for any new viewers. Instagram, it's at Intentional Grounding. Twitter is at INT_grounding. And then Facebook.com/Intentional Grounding. And then all of the shows, as long as the recordings go through, which they usually do, with my great sources at home recording all the shows, they will be put up on SoundCloud.com/Intentional Grounding. So if you missed the show or come in halfway, or if you just want to listen again because you really just can't get enough of me, you can head over there. Usually I have it by the end of the night. But when I saw the picture of this kid, I thought he was just in maybe some D2 or D3 college I've never heard of. That's why he wasn't getting that much more of a story. But when you picture somebody who's a 7 feet tall and 380-pound lineman, you don't think that he's a high school senior. But one exists. Dondre Harris. He is massive, from Essex High School in Tappahannock, Virginia. 7 feet tall. The picture that I posted up of him just tower. It's like that guy that he's hitting might not even be that short, but he is just so big. It is ridiculous. He's a high school senior, so I mean that's why he's getting a little bit more. I guess YouTube famous, and all the scouts are coming out now and taking a look at some of these guys. But is this boy big? But we didn't have a chance to do power rankings. I got this a little bit short notice, and I myself didn't start preparing until the other day. But power rankings will be back next week, right after the games, and I can adjust them accordingly. But we're gonna be doing team talk again. I'm gonna try to blow through because last year I didn't get to do all the teams, and I wasn't a fan of that because I didn't plan it out in my head that I don't have 32 weeks to do all the teams. So I'm gonna start to group some teams together after this week. Maybe do it by division or half of a division. I'm gonna see what works out the best. But we're gonna go, of course, because it's the easiest one, and I can talk about them for hours and get angrier and angrier. Is my New York Jets, 1-2 on the season. Haven't had a division game just yet. Opened the season against Oakland at home, 19-14, in a win that should have been, more than that. Oakland really almost got the best of us. Derek Carr is doing very well so far in his rookie year, I think. It's just, some of the pieces surrounding him. MJD being hurt doesn't help, and Darren McFadden is eventually going to get hurt. Week 2, Green Bay, that was such a close game. 31-24. We all know Marty Morningweg running down, calling the timeout for who knows what reason. He said he took responsibility for that. That's not always the game. There's not always... It's always hard to say the game comes down to one play or one thing that happened, because there's always so many opportunities before that to where you could do better, and and maybe something else earlier happened that could have been fixed, but that's a tough one to say no to. And then, of course, just last night, Chicago lost 27-19. I didn't get to see the second half or so of that game. I was exhausted, and I wound up just passing out. But I watched some of the highlights this morning, and it's just, you can't put all of the blame on him, but Geno Smith gets a good portion of the blame. He's playing like he's taking a lot of chances because he thinks that this is basically his last year to prove himself, and it very well could be if they don't get the results they're expecting. But he's taking too many risky chances. These turnovers are so costly. It's not going too well. The run game is looking phenomenal. They're 18th overall in passing and 2nd overall in running on offensive side with a 157-yard average. I think the amount of yards they got last night, which wasn't that much, brought down their average. They were up at like the 180 range combined. It was very impressive. And then defensive-wise, secondary took a big hit, but they're holding on better than some people are, better than I statistic-wise, I'm saying, than I even thought. They're 9th overall in passing defense with 213 average. The guys are holding on. Not having Calvin Pryor's been great. The best draft pick they got this year, hands down. Of course, the front seven is just better than ever. First overall in opposing rushing yards, only allowing 55 yards a game per average, and that's great facing some pretty decent running backs. Eddie Lacy, Matt Forte, and then week 1, MJD. Those are 3 very good guys, and you can't doubt how well they're doing on the front half of the field. But the back half is going to start to get exploited more and more, and it's really what's going to hurt this team a lot. Going back to Geno Smith, he's 65 for 101 with a 63% completion rating. He's got 713 yards passing through the air, 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, 84 yards on the ground with a touchdown and a fumble lost. Vic has been put in, for 6 snaps over the first 3 games, and it's just like let's just put Vic in right now. It's not making much sense, and I'm thinking it's falling on the hands of Marty Mornhinweg at this point, who I'm not very thrilled with in some of his play calling this season. So I think that's definitely another part of the blame has to go on Marty, because he is making some very questionable calls. 3rd and goal, and you're doing quarterback draws when you got. Quarterback draws with Geno Smith when you have a big guy in Jace Amaro. Decker was out at the time, but if he wasn't, I'm sure he probably still would have did the same thing. I mean, you got all these big red zone targets, and you're not utilizing it the way you should be. Chris Ivory, a guy is a hard-nosed back. Just put him in, and he'll pound it in there. Speaking of Chris Ivory, he's leading the team right now. He's got 189 yards, a 5.7-yard average, only 2 touchdowns on the ground. Chris Johnson, 123 with a 3.5-yard average. He's not doing terrible. He's still coming to his own a little bit. No rushing touchdowns, but he did get himself a receiving one. And that's where he's going to make. I think that's where he's going to make a lot of his money this year is catching out of the backfield. If they can, put these screens in at the appropriate time. They're doing it, these play calls. I feel like I'm watching Schottenheimer again sometimes, and it frustrates me to no end that, they have all this talent and they're not utilizing it the correct way. Decker, the new target, his hamstring's been bothering him. It happened, I think, late last week in the game against Green Bay, and then bothered him again in the second half of last night's game. But he's had 15 targets for 10 receptions over the first 3 games for 156 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, when you look at that stat line, that can be like, that was Julio Jones' stat line on Thursday night. That's what makes it a little rough, and it's hard to say that. I feel like everybody I watch who talks about the Jets is constantly saying, "Oh, it's not only Geno. Geno doesn't deserve all the blame. It's his receivers." And that can be true to an extent. But when the guy is overthrowing on screen passes, or the guys have to reach to grab what should be a very simple pass, and that's going to lose some yards. He's making wrong decisions all the time. It's not always on the receivers. Some people really just don't want to put the blame on Geno for whatever reason they have, and I don't get it. I never will get it, but it is what it is. Going into the defensive side, because I love this defense, and I think they're doing very well with how mediocre the offense is doing. Demario Davis, he's trying to steal away the tackle king from who's usually on the top, David Harris. 21 tackles so far on the year, 2.5 sacks. That's leading the team. 10 total sacks on the team this year. The front seven, they call them the Sons of Anarchy, the Snack Exchange, whatever name you want to call them. I love it because they're doing phenomenally. The next 4 upcoming games are rough. So are the last 2. It's from week 2 to week 7, the quarterbacks that the Jets are facing are among the best. Of course, we went Aaron Rodgers and Jay Cutler last night, and then we face Detroit coming up this week, followed by San Diego, Peyton's Denver, and then Tom Brady at Gillette Stadium. It's not going to be that fun, especially because we're going back and forth. We're staying home for Detroit, going West Coast to San Diego, and then going back over to Denver at home to face Denver, and then traveling short up to Foxborough. But it's not going to be that fun of upcoming weeks here, being a Jets fan. Just stick through. That's all I can say. If you're a Jets fan, you've been here this long, you might as well just stick it out, because it'll be good one day. And this is speaking from somebody who's never seen the Jets do much. I mean, they've gotten to I was very young during the Parcells age, so I can't speak on that. But, looking back at it when he was there with, Wayne was there and Curtis, Vinny Testaverde, and they almost got there. And then we had the 2 back-to-back years with Sanchez, and then that, downfall, very quick downfall, the Mike Tannenbaum era and all that. But stick in there. We gotta get louder at the stadium. We got to get more, a little bit more raucous and make MetLife, place that you don't want to go, because you see some of these big name teams who are so good at home. You got Seahawks, of course, with the 12th man and all that, but you can't doubt how much of an edge that is. Saints at the Superdome, they're great there. They never lose. If the Saints get home field advantage, they're my pick for the Super Bowl because they're just so good at home. But yeah. So it's good to be back. I really did enjoy it. A new thing we're going to put in at the end, I'm going to do fantasy pickup of the week. So if you're really hurt and you really need somebody, a guy who I actually dropped because he was my last pick in the draft. I dropped him because I had such a good bench that I could afford to grab Josh Gordon and kind of stash him away until he comes back around fantasy time, was Eagles wide receiver Jordan Matthews. He had a great game this week, holding 2 touchdowns, and I'm sure he's available in most everybody's leagues unless people picked him up. And then another one I said before was Donnie Brown. He's going to come in and be basically the only guy in that backfield for at least a month. And when he did run at the Colts and he did have his good games, he was good. He was worth picking up. But you just kind of had to gauge when to start him because it wasn't only him there. He had Vic Ballard, but now he's basically alone in that backfield. He's going to be getting a lot of looks. And then also, if you're hurting if you're in my situation, what I did this week, Julius Thomas is on a bye, so I dropped no. Let me rephrase that real quick. Julius Thomas getting put on the bench. Dropped somebody and picked up Owen Daniels. Hopefully that waiver claim goes through, and hopefully nobody I'm in the fantasy league with who has a waiver above me is going to vulture him. So those are my couple fantasy pickups of the week. I'm gonna try to add some new things into the show to liven it up a little bit, so it's not the same thing over and over and over. Maybe not do power rankings some week, or just kind of do it but not make a whole segment out of it. Try to get main talk back into it where I get a whole topic to talk about. But we're gonna end a little bit early because I didn't have a whole main topic to talk about. But I'm getting back into it, so make sure to tune in. This is the new time. Every Tuesday, 12 to 1. Played it out real well because I got the brand new sports broadcasting class here at Brookdale. It's a great teacher, Doug Doyle, who's over at WBGO in Newark. He does a sports segment over there as well. It's a jazz station in Newark, but he got himself a sports show. So right after the show, I'm going to the class, and I'm real excited to take that. Basketball games are starting back up, a lot quicker than we're going to expect. November 20th, I am told, is the BTV's, Brookdale TV's first date that they're going to be covering. So very excited to get back into that too. I know I'll be doing majority of the games again. I believe partner Sean is coming back, and then we're going to possibly filter in some people from the sports broadcasting class when maybe if a day that I can't make it or a day that somebody else can't make it, they're going to try to get a guy in to work with one of us to get used to it since we already have the season under our belts. But it's very exciting times coming up, so stay tuned. Like I said, all the social networking stuff, Facebook.com/intentionalgrounding. Instagram is @intentionalgrounding, and then Twitter is @INT_grounding. I took a little bit of a hiatus there. I wasn't posting much stuff, kind of enjoying the summer, a little bit of an up and down summer, but we're doing all right now. And we will cut it short here, but we'll be back next week, and I will hopefully, I will promise you guys an hour-long show so you can listen, have a nice little lunch, and enjoy. So we'll be back next week. See you later.